Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell a story. This is based on a true story. It's about two young brothers who lived in a very isolated part of the west of Ireland. Tom and Mikey. And their parents died when they were very young. Tom and Mikey grew up doing everything together. They went to the tile together. They made poteen together. They ate off the same plate together. They drank from the same mug together. They smoked from the same pipe together. And they slept in the same bed together. But Tom, being a bit older than Mikey, he decided he'd study for the priesthood. But he didn't stay too long in college because he missed Mikey. And he came home and he joined Mikey, but he was a half a priest. And he used to say mass once a week in the house. So that time the mass was said in Latin and the priest had his back turned towards the people. He'd say mass, but he'd give no sermon because the congregation consisted of Mikey, the sheepdog, and a couple of cats. They were very much into poteen. They put poteen into the bacon of the boiling cabbage and to the bacon of the bread and even to the tea. They trained the sheepdog to drink poteen because sheepdogs are any dogs that can liable to get arthritis in their hind legs. And they needed a working sheepdog to round up the sheep in this very isolated part of the west of Ireland. But the years rolled on and Tom and Mikey got old. And Mikey developed a very bad cough and also a very bad pain in his knee. And for some reason or other, the poteen failed to work. And for the first time in their lives, they had to call in medical assistance. And who arrived on the scene but a young lady doctor. She was only after graduating to be a doctor. And she knew absolutely nothing about how life operated in this isolated part of the west of Ireland, or as a matter of fact, any part of the rural Ireland. She lived in the fast lane, and Tom and Mikey lived in the slow lane. She had a nice cultured accent, and Tom and Mikey had their own accent. They were listening to their own dial and to the dog barking and sheep baying. So she set about her business and she said to Mikey, I'll examine you for your cough. Cough louder, she told him. Louder, louder. So Mikey says to her, well, doctor, he says, when I cough a bit loud, you know, I get a little bit windy. Well, I'll tell you one thing, she says, when I'll be finished with you, you'll be blown a storm. She got the cough out of the way. She gave Mikey a cough bottle, and that was the end of that. Now, she said, I must examine your knee and you'll have to remove your trousers. Remove my trousers? Yes. In broad daylight? Yes, she said. Oh, he says, that's not on. Well, she said, I can't examine your knee if you don't remove your trousers. So, by great persuasion, he eventually removed his trousers. And then there was bigger trouble for Mikey, because Mikey was wearing Longjohns, or as some people call them, passion killers. And this lady doctor never heard of Longjohns when she was studying. And she was calling it an inner pants. And she said to Mikey, you'll have to remove your inner pants. Oh, no way, that wasn't going to happen. The only time I removed my Longjohns is when they had to remove, that meant they were fit to fall off him. That would be about every 12 months. And he said they removed in the dark, no electricity. Well, there's no ifs or buts or maybes about it, she said, but your inner pants will have to be removed. Now, the only encounter Mikey had with women was with his mother when she changed his nappies many moons ago. And he went all through life without ever making contact with a woman or women. And now, this lady doctor wanted him to remove his inner pants, and he was not going to do that, he said. So she said to him then, look, she said, I haven't all day to spend with you, I've other patients to look after. And if you don't remove your inner pants, she said, it will have to be removed fire. That's when he was in an office. He jumped up off the chair and he fell back on his backside. They wonder he had more problems. And at this stage he was throttling out of the mouth and he was backfiring out the rear and he was losing water and he was shivering. His cap was shaking and he was like an ivy leaf, and he was in a terrible state that she was going to pull down his inner pants, as he called it, his Longjohns. So Mikey he had the brain work, the mind was working well with him. He was thinking, you see, during that period, men wore what they called flannelette shirts. There was no collar attached, only you stood in the front and I stood behind. And they were made of very sharp. They'd only come down to about your navel. And what Mikey was thinking of, that if she pulled down his Longjohns, that she'd leave him bollocks naked. He was in an awful state. And he looked up to heaven to saints that he prayed would they come to his rescue. No. And then he thought of his mother's people. They were supposed to be made of iron, and they didn't come to his rescue. So then he was thinking about Houdini. Houdini was supposed to be Superman. And if Houdini could come, he'd stop this lady doctor and put her down his Longjohns and lay her in bollocks naked. But so what's the point of talking about Houdini? He's dead for the last 100 years. And what could a dead man do for him anyway? A dead man can't even help himself. So Mikey thought of a plan. He said, would she leave the kitchen? And she did for a few minutes. And he called in Tom. And he told Tom the predicament he was in, and Tom came up with a plan. He says, I'll get a scissors and I'll cut the Longjohns above the knee. So that was done. She was brought back and she examined his knee. Now she said to him, you'll have to examine I want to examine your other knee, and you'll have to remove your inner pants, the balance of it. So Tom was brought back again, and the other knee was cut off, the Longjohns. Now Mikey was left with shots, so he got over that. So she gave him a rub for his knees, and she bid him goodbye. I don't think the following Christmas that they sent her any Christmas card. Now, Tom and Mikey, they lived on for years after. He lived into a ripe old age, and they never called in medical assistance after. They put in worked. Now we're in the 21st century, and there are still men like Tom and Mikey in rural Ireland. No running water, no electricity. They're probably quite happy with that type of life, and they'll move from that life on to the Great Divide. And don't think there'll be any changes. But that's life. I claim that it takes all type of people to make up a nation, our world, be the black race or the white race. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you very much.